If you think of it, the whole system of public education around the world is a protracted process of university entrance. And the consequence is that many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not, because the thing they were good at school wasn't valued or was actually stigmatized. And I think we can't afford to go on that way. In the next 30 years, according to UNESCO, more people worldwide will be graduating through education than since the beginning of history. More people. And it's the combination of all the things we've talked about, technology and its transformational effect on work, and demography and the huge explosion in population. Suddenly, degrees aren't worth anything.
You probably remember the feeling. The sharpened pencils, the silent classroom, the ticking clock. That strange anxiety that made your stomach hurt before you even opened the packet. And maybe, years later, you still feel it. Not in a classroom, but whenever you're faced with a decision. Whenever you're afraid of making the wrong choice. Whenever you secretly wonder if you're smart enough. Because standardized testing didn't just measure your knowledge, it quietly taught millions of people something much deeper. That your value could be reduced to a number, that every question had one correct answer, and perhaps, most dangerously, that if you didn't know the answer immediately, someone else probably knew better than you. But what if that's exactly backwards? What if life isn't a multiple choice exam? What if creativity, wisdom, intuition, and even intelligence itself were never things that could fit inside a Scantron sheet? And what if generations of people have confused obedience with intelligence? Because that's exactly what they were trained to do. Welcome back to Beyond Surface Level, the channel where we question the systems, beliefs, and invisible programming hiding in plain sight. Because sometimes the most powerful forms of conditioning aren't forced upon us, they're normalized, repeated so often that we stop noticing them. And few things have shaped the way we think, judge ourselves, and measure our worth more than standardized testing. Not because of what's on the test, but because of what the test teaches us about ourselves. So let's start at the beginning. The moment many of us learned that being wrong wasn't part of learning, it was something to fear. Children are naturally experimental. They stack blocks wrong, ask strange questions, invent stories, color outside the lines. They're scientists before they're students. But somewhere along the way, curiosity slowly becomes caution. Because every test sends the same message. Wrong answers have consequences, and enough repetition changes behavior. Eventually, we stop exploring, not because we're incapable, but because we're afraid. Afraid of the embarrassment, afraid of failure, afraid of looking stupid. So instead of asking, what if, we begin asking, what answer do they want? And that shift changes everything. Because innovation has always come from people willing to be wrong. Thomas Edison was wrong, Albert Einstein was wrong, the Wright brothers were wrong, thousands of times. But standardized testing conditions us to believe that mistakes are evidence of inadequacy, rather than evidence of discovery, which creates adults who know how to avoid failure, but struggle to create anything new. Something strange happens after years of testing. You stop looking inward and start looking outward, for answers, for approval, for permission. Notice how often adults say, I don't know if I'm doing life right. I don't know what career I should choose. I don't know who I am. As if somewhere, someone possesses the answer key. But guess what? Life doesn't come with the answer sheets. Relationships, parenting, purpose, love. There are no answers. And yet, many of us unconsciously approach life the way we approach school. Looking around the room, searching for the smartest person, waiting for instructions, because standardized testing teaches us something subtle. That authority knows, and you don't, which will slowly erode trust in your own judgment. Perhaps one of the cruelest side effects of standardized testing is how narrowly it defines intelligence. Imagine judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree, or judging a musician by algebra, or a gifted storyteller by chemistry. Yet, that's essentially what we've done. We've reduced human complexity into rankings, percentiles, scores, letters, numbers, and somewhere along the way, people began confusing performance with worth. Children who struggle with tests often grew up believing they were unintelligent, not realizing they might have possessed gifts the exam could never measure. Empathy, creativity, leadership, humor, imagination, emotional intelligence, vision. Things that actually change the world, but things remarkably difficult to bubble in with a number 2 pencil. Most people assume schools were designed primarily to maximize human potential, but historically, its structure had another purpose. Predictability, standardization, efficiency. Factories needed workers who arrived on time, followed instructions, worked within the systems. And standardized testing fit perfectly into that model because they're scalable, measurable, efficient. But human beings aren't products, and intelligence isn't assembly line material. Yet, generations have grown up believing that being easy to measure means being valuable, which may explain why so many people feel so lost when they leave school. Because suddenly, nobody is grading them, nobody is handing them rubrics, nobody is telling them whether they're succeeding, and they discover something terrifying. They've spent years learning how to pass tests, but not necessarily how to know themselves. Maybe that's why adulthood feels so overwhelming. Nobody tells you the right answer. Should you have children? Move states? Leave that relationship? Start the business? Take the risk? No multiple choice options appear. No teacher confirms your response. No score arrives in the mail. And for many people, that uncertainty feels unbearable because uncertainty wasn't practice. Certainty was. Memorization was. Approval was. But life rewards something entirely different. Adaptability, experimentation, resilience, curiosity, which is the very qualities standardized environments often suppress. So maybe intelligence isn't knowing all the answers. Maybe intelligence is asking better questions. Maybe intelligence is changing your mind or admitting uncertainty. Maybe intelligence is empathy, pattern recognition, creativity, listening, self-awareness. And maybe wisdom isn't found in certainty at all. Maybe wisdom begins when we stop treating life like an exam. Because some of the most brilliant people you'll ever meet won't always have the answers, but they'll have curiosity, and curiosity has built civilizations, not certainty. Perhaps the greatest irony of all is that after years of preparing us for tests, life gives us none. No answer keys, no Scantron sheets, no perfect score, just moments, choices, experiments, and the freedom to get things wrong. So maybe intelligence was never about filling in circles. It was about seeing possibilities. Maybe success isn't the person who always knows, but the person who's still willing to wonder. Because the most dangerous thing standardized testing may have measured wasn't knowledge. It was how quickly we learned to silence our own questions, and perhaps growing up is learning to ask them again. I appreciate you making it this far. It's beyond surface level, and I'll see you next Sunday. Much love.